But this is Congressman Danny Davis, and once again, it is my great pleasure to have conversation with you relative to what's going on not only in Chicago, but throughout the United States of America, and I'm just having a good time. Matter of fact, I just left the mayor a few minutes ago. We were out at the Michelle Clark High School marching down the street with a group called Build and talking about how do we have a peaceful summer. Summers are designed to be peaceful. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we used to sing the song, "Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking, so hush, little baby, don't you cry." Well, in the studio with me is a gentleman who's not quite old enough to remember all of that. He may remember a little bit of it from a historical perspective, but he is Pastor Kevin Ford, the grandson of presiding Bishop Henry Lewis Ford and the son of Bishop Lewis Henry Ford's son, Bishop Ford, who carried on when his father left. And now that his father is gone, Elder Ford is carrying on. And so welcome to our conversation this evening.
Thanks for having me, Congressman.
Well, why don't you tell a little bit about your heritage? I mean, all of us came from somewhere. We didn't just fall out of no Cracker Jack box. And so we have lineage, heritage, and responsibility.
Congressman, again, double honor to be here with you and the listening and visual and the audience that's viewing this today. Briefly, my lineage starts many, many moons ago when my grandfather was born to his mother and father, Cleveland Ford and Cheney Ford. And to that marriage were born a number of children, and my grandfather was one of them. And my great-grandfather was a sharecropper. He was not able to take care of the family after my great-grandmother passed away. So it was through his humble beginnings of going to the Church of God in Christ. My great-grandmother was a loving member of the Church of God in Christ in the early 1900s. It was instructed of my great-grandfather to send my grandfather to Saints Junior College in Lexington, Mississippi. And it was there at 14 years old that the Church of God in Christ covered him, trained him, and showed him the way towards the Lord and how to take care of himself. Long story short, he subsequently came to Chicago in the early 30s. 1936, he had a quarter in his pocket and started the St. Paul Church of God in Christ on the corners of State Street while he was out evangelizing. That year, my dad was born, 1936, and that's when St. Paul had its start. So from there, my grandfather rose up through the ranks of the Church of God in Christ and eventually becoming the leader of the Church of God in Christ by becoming presiding bishop. To his union to Margaret Little, my grandmother, was born Charles Ford and his sister, Janet. And I just love where I come from. I had a loving dad that had an inspiration on him. What my grandfather did not build, but what he envisioned, my father completed that task by building a 60-unit senior citizen building, building a 24-unit building for the disabled, and creating community development in 1995, which now, along with the church, I humbly serve.
And so when we drive down that highway over east, the Bishop Lewis Henry Ford Highway, that too will keep the legacy and the life alive
Yes.
and breathing every day. Let me tell you, he loved that Saints University.
Yeah.
I've heard so many stories about Saints University until it just ain't funny. I mean, he talk about it as though it was the bridge to somewhere. And I guess it really was.
It was, and it was the last large venture that he invested in. Put his all into resurrecting Saints Junior College. Unfortunately, at this time, it's not where it should be. And we're looking for the current presiding bishop, Bishop Blake, to reinvigorate and renovate and bring back to Saints Junior College the spirit that Mother Dr. Mallory left with that institution.
I can just imagine the institution with training programs
Yeah.
in addition to the spiritual heritage of surrounding it. And so when you add all of that together, I'd love to see it, because there are not enough institutions that were actually founded by African Americans. When I read the history and Reconstruction and what these new people who had been enslaved were able to do during the
Yes.
Reconstruction period, and then after that, and even to this day, continuing to build a legacy that says we can. And of course, it often starts with I can.
Yes.
Now, you've gone a step further, because you have developed at St. Paul a skilled construction trades training program. Tell us about that.
Thank you, Congressman. When I listened to what happened at Saints Junior College, how my grandfather, when I was a baby, he walked 2 miles to set the fire for the classroom. As we got older, I think 2 turned to 10. But that was something I laugh at my grandfather. What he was instilling was that spirit to get things going and responsibility. My grandfather's vision was to build a senior citizen building at 4500 South Wabash. He did not get to see that, but my dad picked up the torch, and he took the vision and put his hands to work. Now the building stands in Margaret Ford Manor. Prior to the construction, my dad hired a black architect, a black contractor, Paul King, and my responsibility in this mix was to meet the community and get black people on this project. Well, I met over 200 souls every Thursday prior to construction. And many times we would be in tears after the interview because they didn't have the requisite union card to enter into the skilled crafts. Not putting anybody down, but not just being laborers, but the electricians, the plumbers, the skilled crafts that had to come in there and handle that project. It touched my soul, and I began to research and assimilate data and facts on how to ameliorate the issues that were creating barriers for the black community. And one of those things was that exam, the apprenticeship exams. So I started working with Robert Morris College and the U.S. Department of Labor and others, and came up with the tactical structure to take black people at a 10th grade level within 12 weeks, have them achieve at least first year college in mathematics, working on language arts, skills, crafts, construction history, the whole gamut, a 360-hour robust program. Congressman, you were the first one 23 years ago to write a letter to give support to this program. I treasure that letter. We have to date placed over 242, looking at 45 coming up right around the corner with the last 3 placements from the last class. We enjoy a robust relationship with the labor unions, and now we desire to expand into the black community to take our fair share.
Did you know anything about having a hammer and a nail and a carpenter's apron personally in terms of any of those skills?
Yes. When I grew up in Chicago's oldest house, and so my grandfather purchased that house in 1941. So I was born in 57. From being a baby and watching the painters, the carpenters, looking at the men working on the boiler, and then subsequently when you're raised around Charles Ford and Bishop Ford, you're not going to just stand there, you're going to get involved. And so that helped me. I subsequently worked at 26 in California. Spencer Leak put me over the facilities. So I had to work with all the crafts in the 26th Street. So the exposure, both tactically and also the logistics of working with labor unions, I've had that for many years. Bishop Ford had CIO night back in 1945 at the workers' meeting. That was before my time. But my research has shown that it must have been in my blood because he's been working with the CIO, which later combined with the AFL-CIO, and I'm working with them now at the state levels.
You mean you had the opportunity to work under the leadership and tutelage of Spencer Leak?
Spencer Leak, as my career, he added so much to me as a man by allowing me opportunities to work with him in the director's office at 26 in Cal. I would not have honed my skills with labor unions if it had not been for that chance encounter.
Well, I tell you, when I came to Chicago and turned on the radio one Sunday morning, I heard, "It's time truth speaks." And I've been listening. I've been listening to it, and I came here in 1961. And then I discovered that Mr. Leak and I had the heritage of Arkansas. And we used to show up at a place every year at the Cotton Plant, Arkansas's dinner. They have these clubs, people come from these little towns, and so we just got to be good friends. And Spencer, of course, is one of the most dynamic business persons I've ever had the good fortune to know and respect and benefit from.
I have a high degree of respect.
So you are recruiting now. You're
right
recruiting
this moment.
Individuals. To tell us about that.
773-538-5120. You'll find St. Paul to be a unique program. We don't train to train. We train to place. Our placement record, bar none, is at the highest level. We have a 95% completion rate, placement rate with USDOL apprenticeship programs. And just for the record, we've had 2 African Americans score a perfect 100 on the plumber's exam. And for the other various trades, Congressman, we're scoring in the upper 5 percentile. And this is amazing. So our mathematics is off the chart. And we are opening for our program June 13th. We are targeting right now the Glazers Union, Local 27, bricklayers, pipe fitters, and we are ready to take on the task. If you are willing and open and have a passion and you desire to enter a skilled craft, we're here for you. We're essentially located at 4550 South Wabash. And let the record clearly indicate, Congressman Davis many years ago put our flyer out about 6 years ago, and a young man who lived on Holman Avenue heard about it, came to our backyard to one of our events, which we're hosting again in August, on August 17th from 8 to noon at 4550 South Wabash. Congressman, this young man was so inspired that he came in the backyard, met all the unions, subsequently enrolled in the program. He is now a 6-year licensed plumber, gainfully employed, and has moved his family up into the Beverly area.
Let me tell you, if he's a licensed plumber, he can move anywhere. He can move anywhere he want to move.
And paying for his kids to go to college.
He can pay for his kids to go to college and universities and wherever. I mean, that's a testament to what the program can do. and what it does. I get excited when I hear of this kind of success and where individuals get an opportunity. You know, work is a virtue.
Yes, it is.
When you work, you bind yourself, as the prophet said. You bind yourself. Work is love made
Yes,
beautiful.
yes.
And so I just want to commend you and the parishioners at St. Paul and all of those individuals and entities with whom you work for providing this opportunity. And you, if you're out there and you got a grandson or you got a granddaughter or you know a young person who aren't sure about what they want to do
Yes.
and how they want to do it, send them over to St. Paul. Send them over there and enroll. Let me tell you, if I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. I'd hammer in the evening. I'd hammer all over this land. Give us our last words.
The Bible, thank you, Congressman. The Bible tells us, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. Congressman, I thought of you when I read this Bible verse from 1 Thessalonians 5:11. It's time to build each other up, to be encouraged. We understand the obstacles and some of the oppressive forces, but we can overcome those things by encouraging each other. If we can be of assistance to you, and I know we can, contact us at 773-538-5120. I stand ready to assist you. And let's give God thanks for Congressman Danny K. Davis, who has stood in the gap for all of us these many, many years. Congressman, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I think of my daddy, and my daddy used to love to say, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day.
Thank you.
I'd rather that you don't just preach it, but show me the way. You're showing the way. It's a pleasure. We'll see you next week. We got to go. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. Next week, we'll be right back for another session. Have a wonderful weekend. Do something good for somebody else and treat yourself all right. You'll be all right.
Amen.
See you.